Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the On the Block podcast. You've got myself, Ryan, content manager for Bloc, and today I'm very lucky to be joined by Kevin. So, Kevin, don't know if you want to give a brief intro to yourself.
What's going on, Ryan? Hi everyone. My name's Kevin Park. I am a designer based out in Queens, New York. I have my own brand, A Bit New York, and yeah, and I just create content. I like putting outfits together. I love fashion. I love style. Um, so I am pretty much.
Yeah, sounds good. I think that's where I come across you on Instagram for your style initially, and then I've seen over the past. I don't know how long has your brand been starting? Because I know you've sort of transitioned from like your personal style page to now having your own brand. How long has that journey been for you at the moment?
Yeah, so I had my page, my personal page for about like I would say like 2 years now, and then I just wanted to start off with like kind of sharing my style, sharing my voice on the page, with like different outfit shots, just trying to get creative with it. And then about a year in after I made my own page, I started my brand a bit, and that was always planned out. It was always in the works, and then finally it executed, and yeah, here we are.
Do you have any sort of background in fashion in terms of like growing up or education, or is it just something that you've just had a passion for and you're just like, I just want to do it? Or have you been to school or college for it?
Good question. Yeah, so I've always had an interest in fashion since I was young. I wouldn't really say it was like a specific taste or anything, but I always loved clothing. Like even I remember being in elementary school, I had like a favorite sweatshirt that I would always wear when I could. So I always had like a love for clothing, and then like down the line, after high school, I ended up going into a community college, and thank God, there was a fashion design major available. So I decided, hey, might as well give it a shot. So I went into it. I learned that I really loved it. And, I pretty much really started from the scratch. I didn't know any vocabulary, and I told all my professors that honestly. I just came up straightforward. I was like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, but if you don't mind, I'll if I could ask you things in detail, like after class, and they were really nice enough to kind of guide me through everything. So I ended up graduating from that program. It took me about 3 years to finish all my courses and everything. We had a small fashion show, which was really cool. They also plugged me into an internship out in Manhattan. And, that eventually kind of transitioned into a job. I ended up leaving the job to further my education. I ended up going to the Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT. It's a little well-known school out here in New York. Ended up going there, and I pretty much started from scratch over there, and went all the way to my bachelor's degree. I was able to have the privilege to intern and to work for some well-known companies, and yeah, that's pretty much my background.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Do you think like, because obviously I imagine there are numerous challenges with setting up your own brand. Finding the right manufacturers, understanding the difference probably between, I think some people initially when they start a brand think like about the difference between maybe like almost merch, so like just printing stuff, to actually cut and sew and what fabrics you want and shapes, silhouettes, and it's very much a different process. Do you think like your education and your background really helped, or do you think like this is something you could have done without going to study for it, or do you think studying did play a big role in being in the position you're in today?
That's a great question. I would say, if I were to be completely honest with you, I would say 50-50. The education that I learned, it definitely plays a huge part in what I do, in how the industry works, how, constructing a garment and all, from scratch and everything. You get to really understand that, because you learn it in school. So definitely my education, it allows me to know what goes into constructing a garment, what goes into designing one, what goes into, I don't know, the different fabrics and fibers that you work with, as you construct your, garment from scratch. And but the other 50, that I also mentioned, in my education, I would say the technical things are really applied into, my brand, or any just fashion related stuff, when you construct a garment. But I guess the creative process that you learn in school, it's not super helpful, I would say, because, there is like practicality that has to come into play, especially in terms of like, handling, business, related
Yeah,
stuff, anything with finances, anything with, pricing. You don't really learn all of that in school. From what I've learned, I only learned the fashion creative side. So kind of stepping into the business aspect of this, it was a little overwhelming, I would say. Like there was a lot of things to kind of like learn, in detail. How should I price this? What's the budget, I can use for, X, Y, and Z. So, kind of just stepping into that, it was like a whole new world. But, definitely is an experience that not everybody really gets to have. So, I think it's good overall. But the education portion, I would say, just technical aspect really comes into play when you have your own brand and when you're trying to make clothing and when you work with manufacturers, when you put tech packs together, I don't know, like all the technical stuff. Yeah.
I guess yeah, like what you're saying there. I guess like school can sort of teach you like the technical stuff that maybe is difficult to learn without. But I guess like what you found maybe is that you need a certain level of being an entrepreneur to start your own brand, and sometimes it's a case of I guess trial and error, seeing what works and figuring out for yourself. In that respect, like what do you think has been the most challenging thing you found is setting up your own brand and setting up your own business?
For me, I would say probably finding the right target audience, because when I started this brand, it did take a little turns here and there, but then all in all, just coming from this is where like the business entrepreneurship, aspect comes in. When I started this brand, coming from, a background where I had fashion education, knowing all these like super creative, like, the whole process from scratch and, being very conceptual and all that stuff. I had a, specific taste, as to like the style that I wanted to share. But then when I actually did share it, nobody really understood it. So, um, you know, and I tried again, I released some other stuff, in that kind of aesthetic, but people didn't really relate to it. They didn't really click with it. So, it took a little time to kind of shift and make turns to find the right target audience, I would say. I would say that's one challenge. And like every small business brand, whether it be in fashion or not, it's just having enough capital and just kind of working around that, So I would say those are the biggest challenges that I faced and that I continue to face right now.
And in terms of like setting up your own brand, were you at was that like always the plan, or did you go into fashion and like you said, you mentioned internships there and the jobs that you've had previously, you know, did it make you think actually I don't want to work for someone else, I want to do my own thing, or would there still be an interest for you to work at a fashion house or a fashion brand? What was your experience like there?
So the plan from the beginning was to start up my own business, start up my own brand. Um, but obviously for everything there's a process. So I thought, just from what I thought I would go through the process of working under many companies and then starting my own brand. But it didn't go that way. I ended up just kind of uh, coming out of the job that I was working from, and just starting my own thing. And it was a little scary, to be honest, but you just got to get your feet wet. Like how they say, like you just gotta throw
Try
yourself
it.
in there. Yeah, so I ended up doing that, and and yeah, there's a lot of brands that I look up to, and one of the brands that I looked up to back, back when I was in school, that's the brand that I ended up working with after school. So it was really cool and everything, but I guess a few months down the line, kind of realized like, this isn't what I really want to do,
Want.
you know? Yeah, so I came to a realization, it was really cool. Like I really looked up to that brand. I don't want to really mention names,
Yeah,
but
yeah, of course.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I really looked up to the brand, looked up to the designers, they're really like a role model to me, but once I got into their company, I was like, at first I was like, wow, I'm really in this company, I'm working with them, blah blah blah. But a few months in, I just came to a realization where it's like, this isn't what I really came, this isn't why I started fashion. This isn't why I came down this path for. So I ended up leaving and just threw myself into starting up my own brand. And yeah, uh, here we are.
I think another interesting question I've got for you is, as we just touched on before we joined the call about where we're from and where we're based. Like, do you think being in New York and being surrounded by, a city with such big brands and places to work, do you think that played a key part in your fashion influence? Do you think being in the city is the reason and a factor in where you are? Because like where I'm from, as you said, you don't know where it is, and it's really small. It's not known for fashion. Like, do you think that New York influence is really played a part in where you are in your career today?
Absolutely, 100%. So we call New York the melting pot, where everybody comes together. So you meet a lot of different people from different backgrounds, from different nations, and that's why they call it the melting pot because everybody just comes together and like we create New York, you know. So my brand is actually about my identity as a Korean American. So being a Korean, coming from a Korean background from South Korea, my parents are from South Korea, but being born and raised in New York City, so it kind of just puts that together, and it's like a melting pot of the both identities, like being a Korean American. So, growing up in New York and meeting people from various backgrounds, it definitely influences me to be the person I am today, and also influences my work. And especially when you kind of being raised up in Queens, you meet a lot of people, and you end up kind of just standing for your own people without you even knowing. It's almost like, when you sit at a school cafeteria, there's a group of like cool kids over there, like the various groups that
Yeah, for
you
sure.
kind of encounter. Yeah, but the identity that you have, you can't deny it. Like it sticks with you. It is who you are, and they say like you can't lie about blood. So just coming from a Korean background, and kind of just uh, being raised up in that culture, being raised up with those kind of people, like Korean people, it definitely influences the work I do today, and especially the designs that I put out. It is heavily influenced by Korean history, Korean culture, and one of the big things we do at the brand is hand embroidery and hand making things, which is like a huge factor in Korean fashion itself. Um, all the robes and all the gowns and all the I don't know, like royal fashion that they used to have. It's all hand embroidered. It's all done by hand. So it does play a huge part in the work that I do today, and just the person I am today, I would say. Yeah. That
That's
answers the question. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's very interesting that you've got like two very much different cultural influences and two, you know, like completely different sides of the world to be influenced on to create what brand you've got now. Are there any sort of like Korean brands that you looked up to or look up to now, or are there any American ones right now that you think, not necessarily that you look up to what you do now, but when you were growing up that you think actually, I took a big influence for them, or my style growing up was because of these brands? Are there any that stand out for you?
It's a good question. If I were to be completely honest with you, I don't know too many Korean brands. Um, I know a Korean brand called Issei, and when you spell it out, it's IISE. That's a Korean brand, but I believe they're based in New York though. I recently found them maybe like 2 years ago. They've been doing really good work, and uh, yeah, I learn a lot from them in regards to like traditional Korean techniques and stuff like that. American brands, I would say um, the Row is a big one for me. Um, Rick Owens, a lot of the major big brands that are based out in New York or anyone in America, anywhere in America, I would say. Yeah, I can't really think of much off the top of my head, but and yeah, I think the biggest influence that I get is just street fashion, what people are wearing on a daily basis, especially when I go out to Manhattan, to get like some trims or any kind of supplies, and I just, people watch, as they say it. That plays a huge role in my inspirations. Just looking at people and their lifestyle, what they're wearing, what they're enjoying. Yeah.
I think New York is very much known for that. I think like from my perspective, having not been from New York and not being from New York, that's very much what you, I don't know, is maybe sort of portrayed in films, is portrayed in, the media, and Instagram is very much just being almost like New York street styled, or, just seeing people with their own personality, their own style on the street, because it's like you say, it's a very big city and it's a melting pot of a city. Like you say, you've got different cultures, different backgrounds, and that obviously means there's lots of different styles. Um, it in that respect, like I'm sure you've obviously seen like loads of new brands pop up, and like Amélie Leon, obviously things on Instagram like Hidden. A lot is New York based, and do you think that is, does that make it more difficult for you, and does it make it more competitive, or does it, I don't know, almost like give you the challenge of saying like, you know, this is happening here, I want to be a part of it, sort of thing?
Uh, for sure. I try not to focus too much on other brands because, just naturally human beings, when we like focus too much on other things, you start to compare yourself and then you get discouraged.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, so I don't, I pay attention to them, but I don't try to like focus too much on them. At one point, I wanted to work for, some of the brands that you mentioned. And, but then, once again, just like how when I started working, back in the days, and I realized that, this isn't my path, I came to a realization, it just keeps coming to me. And, eventually, I try to focus a lot more on the work that I do and like building up what I'm doing. But yeah, those brands are definitely a big inspiration for me too. The work that they put out, especially like Ami Andor or, Hidden that you mentioned. Hidden, um, you know, being like a only online retail business plays a huge inspiration for the business that I do because it's only online as well. And Omni Andor, being based in New York, but they focus so much on their roots from Queens. That also plays a big role for me too, and just the style and the Teddy Santos. He's actually from Greece, if I'm correct, right? But he always brings things home. With his brand, like it always relates back to Greece, although it's based in Queens, New York. Things like that, play a huge inspiration and influence towards me. the way I could project my voice, the storytelling that I could do, it definitely does play a big part. And I love seeing like not just New York brands, but any brand, just come up. Like Almiador, I've been like following them since I wouldn't say day one, but from very early time, before they blew up, got all these deals with like New Balance and like before they got so big, but just watching them grow and seeing the process, it definitely, um, yeah, it plays a huge part, in what I do, and especially the storytelling that they do. I think that's the biggest for me. Yeah.
And in terms of like storytelling and creating a brand, if you were to sort of describe your brand to someone who'd never seen it before, is how would you want people to perceive your brand, or what would you say is the message behind it, or how would you want people to interpret what you're making and you're creating? What does that look like for you?
Um, so what I try to do with, and also what I tell other people too, is to have a clear, brand identity, brand ethos, like what you're trying to aim for. So, majority of the times I try to simplify everything into three words, right? For me, it'll probably be like Korean, American, and maybe like bold, or minimal. I don't like too many crazy like graphics, and I try to keep things simple. So yeah, just infusing Korean heritage, Korean history into like American attitude, American style, and putting those together in a minimal way where you can kind of get the message of both. I guess that's the probably the best way I would explain it to somebody who doesn't know anything.
Would you say um, your brand is also a reflection of your personal style, or has your personal style grown and changed and that sort of shaped your brand? Is there something like that you think maybe? I'm sure we've all been through phases of where maybe 5 years ago we were like, I don't know why I was wearing that, or like there's certain trends where we think, wow, or like looking at photos from when you were at school or where you just started work was like, wow, like I wouldn't wear that now. Is has your style changed, and has that affected your brand, and would like your brand reflect your own personal style, I guess?
I would say both. Yeah. I wouldn't make something that I wouldn't wear, you know. If I'm willing to wear it and I would like if it excites me to wear it, then that's probably something I will put out. Yeah. But at the same time, um, I'm not designing for myself. I'm designing, based on what people want, and that's what I'm trying to go for. If somebody wants something, it might even influence me to want to wear it too. So I would say it juggles in between. Yeah.
And is there anything that you've sort of seen trend wise recently that you've thought, yeah, this is something I want to create that you don't do now? Like, is there stuff that, obviously, if you don't want to talk about, if you've got plans for upcoming drops and stuff, obviously, but like, is there something that maybe like a couple of years ahead of where you are now that you think I want to aspire to like be able to create X garment? Like, where is like the sort of like the point that you want to reach to think, yeah, I really would love to do something like that?
Um, trend wise, trend wise, I wouldn't. To be honest with you, I don't like keep track of trends 100%. Like I said, I watch people and see what people like, and that becomes my trend. And I do watch like runway shows and try to keep track of like the trends that are going on in, the fashion world, but recently I've been trying to balance, both reality and also fashion, where it meets in between, and that's kind of like where I'm trying to stand right now. But if there was like a trend or something, I would definitely want to apply it in some way, if it's like applicable. But other than that, I don't pay too much attention to like trends or like what other brands are doing. If anything, I want to make my own trend. You know, I don't
Yeah,
mean to
yeah.
sound like, oh, like, ego or anything, but if anything, I want to introduce something new and, see if people would rock with it, see if people would, find pleasure in it, So,
Yeah, I think you make a good point though in terms of like finding inspiration from on the street. And like I guess like you say, being from New York, you get to see all that stuff, but like from where I'm from, it's not the case. It's a very much a smaller city, and it's very much, probably like the style I like isn't the norm, isn't a common style. It isn't what people around here wear. So obviously a lot of inspiration I get is from like Instagram, and that may be people from New York, it may be people from around the world, but I think in some respects like Instagram has made almost style like homogenous. So like whether you're in
for
New
sure.
York, whether in New York, whether you're in London, whether you're in, I don't know, Australia, like you can't always tell like where someone's from because of Instagram, and everyone's able to view things all over the world and think I like that, I'm going to do that. Or it's almost, you know certain kind of pages post certain kind of outfits and people replicate that, and that becomes a style, and you think, oh, this is maybe 20 years ago, you think that's very much like a West Coast style, that's very much a surf style, but this person's from like Germany or something.
Right.
Do you think that that is a sort of a positive thing of Instagram, or do you think it's, you know, making people less creative, or do you think it's making people more creative, um, in terms of like having their own style, or do you think it's like styles almost becoming homogenous across the world and people are just becoming one? Like, how do you feel like Instagram and social media has played a part in that, and how does that differ from like what you see on the street in New York?
That's a great question. I think overall, not just Instagram, but just social media in general, it's so accessible to everybody. So it definitely plays a positive, it makes a positive impact to everyone, whether it be in fashion or even cooking or, whatever it is, like whatever you want to learn, whatever you want to, explore or further explore. I think it definitely puts, um, creativity together for someone who doesn't know anything. They get to research in a way where they get to watch other people. So, um, and, going to your question, like for people's style and like, instead of like having like New York style, LA style and all that stuff, but everybody just having access to everything. I definitely think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I can know what you're wearing, like Ryan, what you're wearing, and you can know what I'm wearing just by, the, social media platforms that we're on, So I don't think that's a bad thing. I would say the only thing that we need to remember is that social media is social media and life itself, reality is reality. So, if you get influence from social media, you should be able to project it out into reality. If you get influence for a certain style, like you're always wearing skinny jeans, but you saw somebody wear, bagging jeans and, it looked dope, and you wanted to try it, then you should try it. Go out into the world, wear it, go out into the world and like, show yourself to the world. Like, social media is in everything, you know. I think that's what I see a lot of youth going through today, where they're just fixed onto their phones, they're just so like engaged into it. They don't express it out into the world. So but overall, I think it's a positive impact that we get from social media. We get to connect. Even you and I, we were able to connect because of Instagram, because of fashion, So, yeah, I think overall it's good.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Like I think it obviously has its pros and cons. It has the benefits of like, you know um, trying to find your own style, and like I say, sometimes like the things you like is not what's around you. Like I grew up listening to rap music, and like I'm 28, so like for me growing up in like high school, so like being 14, 15, 16, you'd be listening to like Drake and Lil Wayne and
Right.
Kanye, and that is very much like watching their music videos thinking this is this is crazy, like this is insane, but it's completely the polar opposite of where I'm from. Uh,
Right.
that like it's obviously American, it's not English, or it's North American, it's not English, but like in the same way, like the sort of English style at that time was very much based around football culture. So like Stone Island, Adidas Gazelles, and CP Company, and stuff like that. But that didn't wasn't what I liked, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's where you say like it's a positive to see things, and like you say, definitely for young people to try different styles, and I suppose until you try and experiment and find what works for you, just because that's not what everyone around you I guess is doing doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean it's wrong either. It's just about, I guess, being able to express yourself.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, like self-expression. That's the main thing. I view fashion as not just wearing cool stuff, but you're trying to show yourself. You're trying to express yourself. You're trying to share a voice through the things that you wear. The things that you throw onto your body. The things you don't even wear. Even that. You're sharing a voice. So um, all in all, you're expressing your identity. You're expressing who you are. And that's what relates so much to my brand. It's kind of finding who you are and, expressing yourself, being proud of who you are, knowing your roots, knowing your identity, and like showing it through the clothes that you wear. So, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, sounds good. And thinking about kind of what we were discussing before I joined, I've got to move on to another set of questions that I think
Hmm.
that's like being about where you're from and expressing your background. This may kind of fit into it as like um, being from New York is like I mentioned that I really want to go New York and I've never been, and um, how it's always portrayed in like movies and stuff is like it seems amazing. I'm sure you could probably say it either is. I'm hoping you say it is, but I'm sure there's so much going on that like shopping and like you say New York being like a real focus for fashion. Where do you look in New York? Maybe not now. You create your own brand, but like where would be or would have been your go-to places to shop? Like, is it new stuff? Is it vintage? Like, where are the key spots for you, or where they were when you were growing up in New York?
Mm. Um, I would say even to this day, I go out to Manhattan. There's so much to find in Manhattan, even in Queens too. There's so much to find, but Manhattan is where there's everything is going on, everything's happening there. So a lot of times, growing up, I was always in the Soho area. I'm pretty sure you heard of Soho.
Yeah,
It's always busy there. There's a lot of stores there. Everybody is, you know, active in fashion, whether wearing something cool or, they're part of the industry somehow. There's always models around there. Lower East Side, that area, I would say that's like my go-to spot. And you see all the boutiques over there for like high-end brands, Chanel, what else? Like Burberry, all the, big house brands, they're all there too. So, but all in all, it's the people, that kind of make up the community and the neighborhood. And I would say all the people, um, the cool kids on the block, they're all over there. They're all hanging out. They're all doing something. So, and those people are the people that are wearing something cool, wearing something interesting. So, I would say like the Soho, Lower East Side area would be a nice place to visit. Um, and yeah, I pretty much, just grew up always going towards that side of the city. And even to this day, I still visit that side of the city. And, you know, it's always refreshing. It's always new over there. It's always cool over there.
and And in terms of like going out in the city or going shopping, what was the sort of last fashion related pickup that you had,
Hmm,
or
that's a
what's the next, or is there something on your list that you're thinking, yeah, I really want to get that? For me, it's probably whatever trainers or shoes or sneakers are dropping this week. I'm like, I can't help myself. I can't help myself but try and get them. The latest ones I've got are up there. The new Nike Stussy Air Max.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, easily persuaded into buying them. My bank account might say otherwise, but I definitely had to get them.
Yeah. That's a good question. Well, first off, congrats on your W on your Stussy Air Maxes. I actually got them too, and they're a really dope pair. So congrats to getting those. For me, I so when it comes to shoes or sneakers to be specific, Jordans, Nikes, whatever, I like, like retro things. So I started kind of filtering out my shoe collection so that it's more the OG pairs. It doesn't have to be from like 1985 or something like that, but as long as the colorway is there, as long as the color blocking is right, and it replicates the, old original pairs, I I go for those. So definitely, I'm pretty sure you heard the Chicago ones coming out the end of this year. Probably be
If
going for those.
if they don't get backdoored by someone,
Hopefully not, right? But I mean, I heard there's gonna be a lot of pairs releasing for that. So like the number stock. So hopefully, you and I can both grab a pair. But also the Fire Red threes. Did those release already? Fire Red threes? I'm
I'm
not
not
too sure.
sure. No, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, but anyways, probably go for those if it didn't release yet. The Chicago twos. Um, and yeah, just any. I always like collaboration pieces. Like for example, like Sakai and Nike. They do a cool job. Sakai was always a brand that I looked up to for their layering. They layer their garments in such a elegant and chic way, and it doesn't look tacky. It doesn't look like too much. It's like nice, simply done. But taking that portion of their, that strength that they have in their aesthetic and infusing it to technical wear, like sportswear, like Nike. Just seeing like brands collaborate like that. It's always fascinating to me. So anything with collaborations, it always interests me. But
Do you think do you think it's done too much? Because I know people,
uh,
like I know it's been a big topic for a lot of people to say, is do these collaborations make sense? Is there too many of them, or sometimes they don't make sense, and you're just like, why? Are these two brands just doing it for the sake? Do you think it's now a bit played out, or do you think, sometimes it's the right thing, or sometimes it's just too much? What's your thoughts on when brands collaborate?
um, I don't I don't think that it's like too much ever. I wouldn't say that. Because you have to look at the business standpoint of it too, and also like the customers you're trying to target with these collaborations. Obviously, uh, Nike customers, people who like sports, basketball, all that stuff. They're not gonna tune into Sakai where the price point is like so much higher. But if they come together, kind of brings the audience together. So I don't think it's ever too much. Is it too often? Maybe that might be a yes. Nowadays it's all about collaborations, and there's even like three-way collaborations now, which I never thought would even happen. But um, I think just collaborating in general is it's a very it's a good thing to do. It's a very smart thing to do, in a business standpoint, but also, in regards to design too, just bringing two aesthetics together, two tastes together, two flavors together, and like making it one. I think it's always good.
Would there be ever a dream collaboration that you'd love to be a part of? Is there a brand that you think, you know, I'd really love to work with them, or I'd really like to take this silhouette or this style? Has that ever crossed your mind?
Absolutely. I've always been a fan of Nike. growing up, I always had Nikes. My first pair of like real sneakers were Air Force Ones, mid tops. So yeah, collaborating with Nike would definitely be like a dream come true. And other than that, just any brand in general, as long as it makes sense. I can't just think of one off the top of my head, but any brand in general, as long as it makes sense, I'm always open to collaborate.
Yeah, I think if I was asked that question, I think Nike could definitely be it'd definitely be the one. It'd be hard not to, and I think, like you say, trying to think are collaborations happening too often. I think when it comes to Nike and it comes to sneakers and it comes to my bank account, I'd have to say yes. um, they certainly know what they're doing in terms of hitting the customer base. But like you say, they're like three-way collaborations like Nike, Travis Scott, um, and then
Fragment.
Fragment, and then like the things that he's doing is like would it seems maybe 10, 15 years ago would something like that happen now. It would seem absurd, it would seem
Right.
crazy, but like with the way the world and the way things have changed and everything moves at such a fast pace now that
Mhm.
Travis Scott Jordans, we know like the price is going crazy, and like you
Yeah,
say, from a business standpoint, if Nike and Jordan and Fragment and Travis know that they can make a serious amount of money because there's such high demand, they're
for
gonna do
sure.
it, aren't they?
Mhm. Yeah. So just collaborating itself, I think it plays a huge role in marketing, building a value for all these different brands. So, you know, it's a good move overall, I would say. Yeah,
I think like what you said there is about being a good marketing tool. I think you're right because like it may, like you say, expose people to brands that they've never heard of because you may be a New Balance fan but have never heard of Aimé Leon Dore or
right.
and then you see there's not just the sneakers releasing, there's a whole collection, there's a
Hmm.
whole, and then you start to explore more, and I think like you say a marketing tool to drive that awareness and to drive to meet a, like you say, understanding your audience is difficult, and
Right,
like you say a collaboration may expose you to an audience that you didn't think would be or didn't think could be your audience.
right. Hmm.
Yeah, so it definitely makes sense, but it's, I suppose, like you say, doing it right, and Nike seem to be doing it right a lot of the time for sure.
For sure. Yeah. So, it has to make sense. That's like the main thing. And Nike, they've been doing a good job. Like, I think that's where the storytelling really plays, and comes in. Um, yeah, but Nike's storytelling is always on point, and I'm always learning from them in that aspect too. So, even like New Balance, they're on the rise. They're already on top now, but even them too, just with all the collaborations, it kind of got them to where they are right now. With like Jound, JJJ Jound. I don't know how to pronounce that, but them, Amelie Dor, all the other brands like Kith, all the collaborations that New Balance has gone through, got them to where they are now, and it's a value brand now. Like if you're wearing New Balance out in the streets and you see, somebody sees you, that knows fashion, they consider you a cool kid. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah, yeah,
like if definitely like you say there, like with New Balance, maybe 10 years ago, where I'm from, or just in general, like New Balance wouldn't be a cool thing. It wouldn't be like
for sure.
you know,
Yeah.
like it'd be like a running shoe that maybe your dad'd have, or it wouldn't. It. I wouldn't say 10 years ago, or like when I just left college and school, that you'd think I know I want a pair of New Balance, like because that's what like you say, that's what's cool. It definitely
Hmm.
definitely wasn't that. So to see
Right.
what New Balance have done with collaborations playing a big part of that, I think is a testament to show that it does work and it does
Hmm.
change people's perceptions. And I'm sure that's only going to continue. Like with Teddy taking up his role at New
Yep.
Balance, we're definitely going to see more of that. Um, whether again, like whether my bank can handle New Balance and Nike doing stuff like that, I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see how those collaborations have really changed people's perceptions of a brand and
Hmm.
how it can have a positive impact.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
I think then just to round up with a sort of like final question I've got for you for all that you've been through in terms of like working at different brands, your education, starting your own brand. If you were to give someone who hadn't been to school, maybe someone 15, 16, just looking starting out their career and like or moving into being an adult, what would be the main piece of advice you'd give someone looking to get into fashion or looking to start their own brand? Like, what would you say is the biggest learning curve that you found?
I would say I would share two things. Number one is find your voice. Find your voice, what message you're trying to, share. And in that voice, of course, it includes like your aesthetic, your style, you know, the uh the fashion that you want to put out there, so find your voice. And second thing would be don't waste time. Time is too precious. Yeah, whatever you do, invest the most time as you could, as much as time as you could. And yeah, just stick to your voice and stick to what you're trying to share. Stick to, the fashion, the trend, the style that you're trying to put out there, um, and just stay consistent with it.
Perfect. Yeah, there's some real good advice there. So I just want to say a massive thank you, Kevin, for taking the time out to have a chat with me. I've really enjoyed it, so I really appreciate it. Just before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug or give a shout out to, or just let people know where to check you out?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Ryan. Thank you for all that you do. Number one, for this podcast, inviting me, allowing me to speak.
Thank
It's
you.
my first podcast, so I might have like stuttered a lot probably, but uh, yeah, but thank you overall, and thank you for what you do on social media. Bringing a community together so that they can enjoy what they do, what the fits that they put together, the shots that they take with their outfits. It's really an amazing thing that you do, and especially to bring a
Thank you.
community together. That's a huge thing. So thank you to you. Shout outs to you. Shout outs to your page, and all the people that you work with, for your page. And yeah, but other than that, I'm on, Instagram. I'm on Twitter. My handle is a bit dot of KVINPARK. A bit of Kevin Park. It's
Be
kind of like
linked.
a mouthful.
It'll be linked in the bio as well for everyone.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Instagram, I'm sharing more like aesthetic, uh, related shots and content. Twitter is a little more free. I'm like, asking questions to, my followers, and trying to, have a conversation more on Twitter. But also you can find my brand a bit at the Instagram handle for that is a bit.myc. That's a little more simple, right? A bit.myc. And yeah, you can find the brand there. And we have a release every month that we push for. So yeah, just stay tuned. And when you just stay on top of all the stories and the posts that I put up, and also that the brand puts up, you get to have an idea of what's coming. And the way that my business works is you have to buy things um, within a 48-hour time span. So I do that to uh, kind of minimize in waste, and also for like sustainability purposes. So yeah, if you want something, you have to kind of buy it within that time frame, from the release date. So yeah, mainly on Instagram, Twitter, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. I'll be sure to leave a link to everything in the bio below, so everyone can check that out for sure. And we'll definitely be promoting the podcast and also your brand across Instagram. So again, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Ryan. So sounds good. How was that?